Christine Lewens was born in Hartford, Connecticut in 1964. She's an American-born New Zealander-Belgian novelist and currently lives in New Zealand with her family. She received a master's degree in American language and literature from the Howard University, and she was an international model before devoting herself to writing novels. In 1996, she was awarded a Best Screenplay Award at the Centre National du Cinéma et de l'Image Animée, and soon after, in 1999, her first grotesque book, Primordial Soap, was printed with over 4,000 copies sold. In 2008, Lewens published her most successful novel, Cajun Skies, which is set in Austria during its annexion to Germany in the Second World War. Lewens decided to tackle her painful past since she is the Flemish artist Guillaume's granddaughter who was forced to work in a German labor camp during the Second World War. She took inspiration from a true story told by an elderly woman she met in Paris, who fell in love with a Jewish boy secretly hiding behind a false wall in her family's home. And the two of them finally got married right after the war was over. However, Lewens changes the story, as she envisages one of the two lovers as a young member of the Hitler Youth, and turns a love story with a happy ending into an obsessive love disorder one. We can therefore say that she adapted in turn someone else's story. The novel, which was printed by the publishing house based in Milan, Sam, has been translated into Italian twice, and in 2019 it was turned into a film directed by Taika Waititi, who won the Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay in 2020.
Field Marshal Jojo, you're our top man. Prepare to leave the house.
Johannes Betzler, an Austrian boy, is the narrator of the book Cajun Skies. He's so enthralled by Nazism that he decides to join the Hitler Youth and works to spread Aryan propaganda. In 1938, Austria is annexed to Germany and World War II breaks out. As a fresh enlisted soldier at the age of 17, after injuring his face in an exercise and during his convalescence at home, he notices the fleeting behavior of his parents. They are concealing from him their strongly anti-Nazi ideology and are hiding a Jewish girl behind a false wall. Her name is Elsa, and she was Johannes' sister's best friend. When he discovers their secret, as a fierce anti-Semitic, begins to pick at her. But gradually his initial hate turns into interest, love, and then into obsession. After his parents' death, between the two rises a sort of love game. Elsa is imprisoned in a hiding place and oppressed by his attentions, but her mind is free to wander. Johannes, on the other side, who is physically free, ends up chained by his obsession feelings. As a matter of fact, after the defeat of anti-Semitic Germany, he decides to keep her with him and hide the truth about the end of the war. He tells her that the Germans have won and offers his protection. Vienna is in the grip of decay, once inhabited by well-educated people and now by Russian prostitutes and soldiers. The boy has become a man who must support his and Elsa's survival despite his insecurities, guilt, economic problems, and jealousy. The novel ends on Johannes' desperate thoughts, who lost Elsa after telling the truth about her freedom. The film adaptation is based on a very different atmosphere from the book's gloomy one. Jojo Rabbit is a satire of Nazism and of its authoritarian regime. Through the boy's perspective, who lives his obsession in a childish way, the movie focuses on the view of the outside world, while in the novel the gaze is turned inward, inside the protagonist's mind and home. In the movie, Johannes is only 10 years old. His mother calls him Jojo, and he has an imaginary friend, Adolf Hitler, played by the director Waititi himself, whose aim is to deride Nazi propaganda. Hitler becomes his personal hero, always by his side to support him. In short, he represents everything the boy aspires to be. Jojo's actual positive model is his mother, who embodies the strength and integrity of people opposing the Nazi regime, while the book does not focus much on her psychological traits, describing her as a weakened woman who is afraid of the consequences of the protection she granted to the Jewish girl. The film's plot sticks close to the book, but it's limited to the first part of it and stops at the end of the Second World War. Waititi, with its irony and the power of laughter, has turned a story full of shadows into one permeated by the humanity which life often strips us of.
God. Nothing makes sense anymore.
Yeah, I know, it's definitely not a good time to be a Nazi.
The movie ends with Elsa, now free, dancing with Jojo to the notes of David Bowie's German version of Heroes. Lewin's main theme is Johanna's love turned into obsession, which traps him in a cage full of sick feelings, whereas Elsa is stuck behind the bars of Johanna's lies, which are another novel's main theme, attempting to escape through her dreams and imagination. This prison made up of bricks and lies makes us think about an obsession that is increasingly suffocating and tormenting, and on how much it can elevate to pathological levels, until we can no longer distinguish between real and false, true and unreal. I have always been fascinated by the stories my grandfather used to tell me about his experience as a prisoner of the Germans during the Second World War, and I've always imagined what it was like living that time with him, the trench, the prison, the war ideology and the sacrifice. He experienced the brutal Nazism, the racial and Aryan superiority, and most importantly, he witnessed the horrors of war. I discovered this novel after I had watched and appreciated the film adaptation Jojo Rabbit that balances its innovative style with heavier themes, such as Nazism and the Holocaust, through a child's eyes. Both the film and the book, in fact, educate kids about tolerance and that there's no place in the world for hate. Although the reading is sometimes slow and dispersive, it was very interesting. I was impressed by how well Christine Lewens managed to incorporate accurate historical facts described in the novel, to the point where they are almost unreal and make us feel really trapped in a cage. And yet, she successfully integrated humor to the drama. The novel is about a love story slightly different from the others, with two different visions of love and a crescendo of emotions, lies and selfishness that evolve into a vortex of feelings that almost lead to nausea and madness. The historical and social context shown by a child's point of view and later from a boy's one is described so perfectly that we can totally immerse ourselves in his life, as it happened to me when I was a child with my grandfather's stories. Lewens invites us to reflect on racial discrimination, the manipulation of propaganda, and the hard life of those who don't live but struggle to survive during the war. But those themes are not just like a plunge into the past. Unfortunately, even nowadays, in 2020, we still witness daily racist events and prejudices towards others that undermine human rights. Hate speech appears not only in political life, but also in everyday life. While time can erase people's memories, history teaches us not to forget and educates us for our future. History teaches us, but man doesn't always learn.